Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Lepri of Stokastic.com, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my top 8 quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends in terms of optimal percentage for the week number 17 DraftKings slate. But before we can get on into things, I would like to ask that if you guys do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, cool graphics going to fly into the screen right now, at NotoriousFNTSY. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comment section. I'd love to talk to you guys down there. So this list is in order of optimal percentage. Number 8 for each position will be the least optimal. Number 1 will be the most optimal at their given position. So without further ado, let's get to my week number 17, DraftKings Contenders. We begin with the quarterback position at number 8 with Mystic Mac Jones of the New England Patriots going up against the Miami Dolphins at home in Foxborough, 5,000 on DraftKings this week. At number 7, we have Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers going up against the Minnesota Vikings, 6,000. At number 6, we have Daniel Jones of the Giants going up against the Colts, 5,700. And at number 5, where the true breakdown begins, we have Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the Houston Texans in Houston, 6,200 on DraftKings on the week. Currently on Stokastic.com, we have Lawrence projected for 18.6 fantasy points. They are 10th in implied point total with 23.75, and they are 4-point favorites in this spot. Trevor Lawrence has a 6.8 optimal percentage with a 4.9 boom percentage. Now, the Houston Texans are one of, if not the worst defense in the National Football League, so it should be no surprise at all why we like Trevor Lawrence so much this week. Trevor Lawrence has been on fire NBA Jam style, and I really do believe that he will continue that heat this week up against a bad Texans defense. At number 4, we have Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears going up against the Detroit Lions in Detroit, 7,900, projected for 22.6 fantasy points. They're 11th implied point total on the week with 23, and they are 6-point dogs up against the Lions. 7.2 optimal percentage for Justin Fields with a 4.8 boom percentage. Now, I was someone personally who really liked Justin Fields last week because despite the fact that on paper the Buffalo Bills have a really great run defense, when you actually watch the games, you can see that the reason why the run defense is ranked so highly in terms of rushing yards allowed per game is because their offense is so fucking good, they force teams to throw the ball late in the game. So a guy like Justin Fields, I thought, could get loose, have a pretty big game. He ends up shitting the bed, but this week he gets the Detroit Lions. I really do expect this to be one of the highest scoring games on the slate. The biggest issue with Justin Fields is just finding who to pair him with. If you want to go with a double stack, it is incredibly difficult to stack him with a bunch of receiving weapons on this team. I do like Justin Fields, though, quarterback number 4 in terms of optimal percentage on the week. At number 3, we have Patty Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the Denver Broncos at home in Kansas City, 8,500, projected for 23.4 fantasy points, 2nd in implied point total, 28.75, 12.5 point favorites, 8.3 optimal percentage with a 5.9 boom percentage. Now, I know that the Denver Broncos have one of the best pass defenses in all of the NFL, but at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes is still fucking Patrick Mahomes. It doesn't matter if he's going up against the 85 Bears or the Detroit Lions defense from this year. You're going to be confident when you throw Patrick Mahomes into your lineup. Now, I know Juju Smith-Schuster has been on a bit of a downward spiral. Travis Kelce has been really reliable, and it is a little bit tough to determine which wide receivers you want to stack with Patrick Mahomes, but at the end of the day, this is a quarterback that can easily put up 30 plus points in any given matchup. Again, I don't care that he's going up against the Denver Broncos. The only thing that's really making me not as likely to play him this week on DraftKings is the price tag at 8,500. At number 2, we got Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions going up against the Chicago Bears at home in Detroit, 5,600 for the Goffinator, projected for 19.6 fantasy points, 1st in implied point total, 29, 6-point favorites, 8.6 optimal percentage with a 10.7 boom percentage. The Chicago Bears defense this year is bottom of the barrel, complete and utter dog shit, and this game reeks of an incredibly high scoring tit for tat game. These are two offenses that when push comes to shove, they could put up a shit ton of points, especially the Detroit Lions when Jared Goff is looking on. The wide receiver weapons for the Detroit Lions outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown are relatively cheap every single game, and Amon-Ra St. Brown obviously has that upside to score 25 plus points in any given matchup, and this week, again, the Chicago Bears defense is soft as baby shit. Jared Goff is probably going to be the quarterback I play the most this week on DraftKings. At number 1, we got Big Cock Brock, BCB, big cock Brock Purdy of the 49ers going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. $5,500 on DraftKings this week, projected for 17.7 fantasy points, fourth and implied point total 26, 10-point favorites, 10.1 optimal percentage for Mr. Brock Purdy, 8.8 boom percentage. Now, the Las Vegas Raiders are another one of those defenses that it's almost laughable to watch them go out there and play. The only issue with this matchup is the fact that Derek Carr won't be playing and Jarrett Stidham will be playing, so I don't really see why the 49ers would be in a game environment where it's going to be a back and forth game, right? I expect the 49ers to lay a pipe to the metaphorical ass of the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't really expect this to be a back and forth affair. Now, maybe Jarrett Stidham turns into Brock Purdy or something, right? He's just this amazing backup quarterback that no one cares about. Don't think that's very likely, though. I think Brock Purdy's a really good player, so I'm not really trying to come for his neck or something like that. It's more of just the fact that I don't think that the game environment here is going to push Brock Purdy to go over 20 fantasy points. Next up, we move to the running back position, beginning at number 8 with James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals going up against the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta, 7,200. Currently dealing with an illness, but I believe he will end up playing on Sunday. Brian Robinson Jr. of the Commanders going up against the Browns at home in Washington, 5,200. At number 6, we have Travis Etienne Jr. of the Jaguars going up against the Texans in Houston, 6,400. At number 5, we have Mr. Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers going up against the Minnesota Vikings, 7,100 at home in Green Bay, projected for 16.9 fantasy points, fifth and implied point total with 25.75, 3.5 point favorites up against the Vikings, 11.5 optimal percentage with an 8.1 boom percentage. Now, this is another one of those games that reeks of points. I really do think this is going to be a very high scoring affair. Aaron Jones' health is up in the air right now, as is his teammates Christian Watson. If Aaron Jones does not end up playing, I promise you, I am going to be jamming A.J. Dillon into my lineups, but that's probably going to be a play that everyone else thinks of because it doesn't take some fucking Albert Einstein genius to figure out that A.J. Dillon would be a great play in that scenario. The Minnesota Vikings defense is soft as baby shit, so I like Aaron Jones a decent amount this week, but not as much as I like player number 4, Tyler Algier of the Atlanta Falcons, going up against the Arizona Cardinals at home in Atlanta. 5,300 on DraftKings this week, projected for 14.7 fantasy points, 12th and implied point total with 22.75, 3.5 point favorites, 15.7 optimal percentage with a 12.5 boom percentage. The Arizona Cardinals, another one of those teams that is just bottom of the barrel in terms of defense. The defense sucks absolute ass, and the Atlanta Falcons play football such a funny way. They're up by 40, which we'll never see this season. They run. They're down by 40. They also run. Their MO is just to run the rock at an incredibly high rate. Now, I'm a big fan of Cordero Patterson, but Tyler Algier is the main back on this team and has been the definition. You pull up the Webster's Dictionary, look up efficiency, a picture of Tyler fucking Algier shows up. I love this spot against the Cardinals at only $5,300. At number 3, we got Saquon Barkley of the Giants going up against the Indianapolis Colts, $8,000, projected for 20.3 fantasy points, 13th in applied point total of 22.5, 6-point favorite, 16.6 optimal percentage with a 12.2 boom percentage. We have seen the Colts defense get pounded into submission week in and week out. At this point, Saquon Barkley has kind of pressed the NOS button, like in, if you ever played those games at like the movie theater, where you're racing, and you press the NOS button, it makes your car go a lot faster, and typically, like, lifts your car up in the air. That's what Saquon Barkley's done. He's went up into the next level, super sane. He's been playing incredibly well. The Colts defense doesn't scare me one bit, and even at the high price tag, I like Saquon Barkley a ton. At number 2, we have a running back that does worry me a little bit, spooks me a little bit. Ramondre Stevenson, the Patriots, going up against my Miami Dolphins, 6,800. The Dolphins have one of the best run defenses in the NFL, but it is proven, and as someone who watches every Dolphins game with a keen eye, you can see that the Dolphins defense at home, night and day compared to away. At home, they're amazing. Away, this game's in Foxborough. The Dolphins defense normally comes out a little bit limp dick, a little flaccid, projected for 18.4 fantasy points from Mr. Ramondre Stevenson, 16th in applied point total 22, 3-point favorite, 17.8 optimal percentage, 13.8 boom percentage. But the more I think about Ramondre Stevenson, the more I talk myself into him. Now, despite the fact that the matchup is pretty bad, Ramondre Stevenson has shit the bed 2 weeks in a row. So a lot of people are going to be nervous. Ooh, 6,800. $3,500 to pay up for Ramondre Stevenson. Oh, he's a little expensive in people's minds because, again, he screwed him over 2 weeks in a row. Hasn't looked great. Maybe this is the game where he bounces back, but at the same time, the devil versus the angel on the shoulder, the devil's telling me that while a bounce back might be imminent, Dolphins defense really good against the run. At number 1 here, before we pivot to the wide receiver position, we got Christian McCaffrey of the Niners going up against the Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. 9,000 smackaroos for Christian McCaffrey. But before we break down McCaffrey and go on into the wide receivers and the tight ends, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at BetMGM. Now, if you are a brand new user to BetMGM, you can get a $1,000 risk-free bet plus 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum for NFL and NBA. I know the NFL season's coming to a close. They also have, obviously, playoff NFL contests, but you can also experiment in the NBA streets as well. So, all you got to do is click on the link down below in the video description, create a free Stokastic membership using the form below, or log in if you already have an existing Stokastic.com account. Click on the large BetMGM button, should be pretty easy to see. That appears after registering and or logging in. Then complete the necessary steps with BetMGM. Create a BetMGM Sportsbook account, deposit at least $10, make your first paid bet, and after that bet settles, then you will qualify for your Stokastic subscription. They will email you. You'll get an email from BetMGM Sportsbook with the instructions on how to redeem your 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Make sure you click on the link in the video description down below to activate that offer. Make sure you guys check that out. $1,000 risk-free bet plus the 2 free months is an excellent value. Again, back on into things. We got CMC Dynamite. The Raiders defense, again, soft as baby shit. This should be an incredibly easy matchup for McCaffrey. And the upside of McCaffrey here is that I think they're going to be laying the pipe to the Raiders. So I think they're going to look to run the ball late on into the game, and that gives a huge boost to McCaffrey. But I am also kind of in the thought process of not being super aggressive with McCaffrey this week, because I think it's entirely probable that they're up big in the game and then they run late. But instead of risking injury on McCaffrey, because we all know McCaffrey isn't the definition of fucking health, they might just go to the backups. So that does somewhat concern me, at least a little bit. But obviously, maybe he just smashes in the first half and it doesn't even fucking matter. Now we move to the wide receiver position, beginning at number 8 with Christian Kirk of the Jags going up against the Texans in Houston, 6,000. At number 7, we have the gritty king Justin Jefferson of the Vikings going up against the Packers in Green Bay, 9,500. Number 6, we have Allen Lazard, the Lazard King, Green Bay Packers going up against the Vikings, 5,400. At number 5, we have Keenan Allen of the Chargers going up against the LA Rams. Ever since this guy has came back from injury, he has been outstanding. $7,000 on the week, projected for 17.1 fantasy points, 7th in implied point total with 24.5, 6.5 point dogs, favorites, actually, my bad, 6.5 point favorites to the LA Rams, 13.9 optimal percentage with a 10.5 boom percentage. Now, if everything goes correct in this game, which is possible, where, hey, Baker Mayfield in this offense is humming a little bit, maybe they're going to be able to keep this one to be an interesting game. Maybe this does end up being a fucking hammer fest where they're swinging haymakers back and forth, and maybe that could lead Keenan Allen to being the most optimal receiver. Or maybe the Rams just aren't very good, and the Denver Broncos made them look like fucking Super Bowl champions or something. But at the end of the day, Keenan Allen has been so consistent as of recently. I like Justin Herbert a decent amount this week, despite the fact that he was not a part of the quarterback list that we talked about. So Keenan Allen should be in for a pretty big spot. The price tag is a little hefty, but number 5, Keenan Allen of the Chargers going up against the Rams. And number 4, we have Christian Watson of the Packers going up against the Minnesota Vikings, 5,900. This guy was an auto lock button in Fantasy Cruncher over the last couple of games, but the last 2 games he's been in a downward slump. Projected for 15.1 fantasy points, 5th in implied point total with 25.75, 3.5 point favorites, 14.4 optimal percentage with an 11.6 boom percentage. His health is up in the air right now. Something to monitor up until Sunday, because I can't tell you right now on Friday as I'm recording today's video if he's going to be good to go or not. Again, the Vikings have one of the worst pass defenses in all of the National Football League. So this really does have the upside to be the bounce back game for Christian Watson because of how bad the Vikings defense is. Again, 2 down games, but before that, he was on a stretch of 4 incredible games in a row. The price tag's going down, $5,900. It's in a spot where I really like him. So if he plays, I'm going to be jamming a lot of Christian Watson, especially because I like the Green Bay Minnesota stack so much. At number 3, we move to Jacoby Myers of the Patriots going up against the Dolphins, $5,000. Projected for 14.1 fantasy points, 16th in applied point total with 22, 3-point favorite, 16.6 optimal percentage, 11.7 boom percentage. Now, Jacoby Myers is not very exciting to me because of his play style. He's not really a guy that's going to be scoring multiple touchdowns in a game. He kind of just gets the targets, turns them into some receptions, gets a couple of yards, and scores like 15 points potentially. It's a little bit boring, but he's really the only option they have to throw the fucking ball to. They have to continue to force feed the rock down the throat of Jacoby Myers. So again, while I don't love the player, I don't love the situation even against Miami, I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think this game is going to be a complete and utter fucking snooze fest. But still, at the price tag with how much he's going to get targeted, it makes sense. At number 2, we move to Garrett Wilson of the Jets going up against the Seahawks in Seattle, 5,500. Projected for 15.4 fantasy points, 14th in applied point total with 22.25. Tied with the Vikings, 2-point favorites, 19.1 optimal percentage with a 14.7 boom percentage. This is another game that I think could be incredibly high scoring, especially if the Jets defense falters a little bit in this spot. 5,500 for Garrett Wilson with Magic Mike White under center. Garrett Wilson is a guy that you can rely on easily. When Zach Wilson was under center, though, it was no bueno, but they're back to Magic Mike White. At number 1, we have my guy Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions going up against the Chicago Bears, 7,800. Projected for 21.3 fantasy points, first in implied point total 29, 6-point favorites, 21.2 optimal percentage, 18.7 boot percentage. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown has been in a bit of a slump over the last couple of games, but if there ever was a game for him to break out, for him to unleash himself, it would be up against a garbage Chicago Bears defense. I'm a huge fan of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, obviously, the other guys below him, the price tag's a little bit better, right? 5,500 for Garrett Wilson, 5,000 for Jacoby Myers, 5,900 for Watson, 7,000 for Keenan Allen. At the end of the day, though, the upside for Amon-Ra St. Brown is the number 1 receiver on the week, and I think Christian Watson has that in him, and so does Keenan Allen and Watson, but I really like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I play him every week. Just going to be honest. Now we'll pivot to the tight end position to close out today's video. If you haven't ended up enjoying thus far, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as that like button. It helps us out a ton. At number 8, we have David Njoku, the chief of the Cleveland Browns, going up against the Commanders in Washington, 4,100. 7, George Kittle of the Niners going up against the Raiders in Las Vegas, 5,900. Higbee at 6 of the Rams going up against the Chargers in LA. For the Chargers, technically a home game for them, even though they play in the same stadium. 4,600. At number 5, we have TJ Hawkinson, who went balls deep inside of the Giants defense last week, of the Vikings going up against the Packers this week in Green Bay, 5,400. Projected for 11.7 fantasy points, 8.2 optimal percentage with a 6.5 boom percentage. Every week I play Hawkinson because I always play a lot of Viking stacks. I like the Vikings a ton. I know they are a little bit overrated in terms of their record, but their offense is good and their defense is dick cheese, so they're going to have to throw the ball a lot, especially against the Packers. Hawkinson's riding hot. I like Hawkinson a ton, but to be honest with you, I think I like some of these other tight ends slightly better. Number 4, we have Dallas Goedert, one of the most efficient tight ends in the NFL, but he's not a guy that's ever going to be really peppered with targets. Like, you're never really going to see, unless there's a couple of injuries because of how many weapons they have, you're never really going to see Goedert getting 9 or 10 targets, whereas I could reasonably see Hawkinson doing something like that. So Goddard going up against the Saints, 4,700 at home in Philly. Projected for 11 fantasy points, 8th in applied point total, 24.25, tied with the Bengals. 6.5-point favorites, 8.5 optimal percentage with an 8.8 boom percentage. The Saints are just dead in the fucking water. Luca Brasi sleeping with the fishes. They are complete and utter embarrassments. Dennis Allen needs to be fucking fired. I can't stand that guy. Dallas Goedert, again, he's going to be efficient. The only problem with him is I don't really ever see him having that huge game that takes you over the top, like where we've seen these tight ends that are cheap score 20 plus points. I just don't really think Goddard has that in him unless he scores multiple touchdowns. At number 3, we have Cole Kmet of the Bears going up against the Detroit Lions in Chicago, or in Detroit, 4,500. Projected for 10.5 fantasy points, 11th in applied point total with 23. 6-point dogs, woof woof. 10.8 optimal percentage with an 8.1 boom percentage. In terms of wide receivers that I want to stack with Justin Fields, Cole Kmet is number one. Now, he hasn't had that many great games aside from that stretch in the middle of the season where he was stretching out defenses' buttholes. But at the end of the day, I do believe this week could be that big game because, again, the Lions' defense really, really bad. At number 2, we have Easy E. Evan Ingram coming off a heater up against the New York Jumbo Jets on Thursday Night Football, going up against the Houston Texans in Houston 4,400, projected for 11.5 fantasy points, 13.9 optimal percentage, 12.5 boom percentage, only $4,400. DraftKings is begging you, telling you, hey, you got to play Evan Ingram, even if everyone and their mother is thinking the exact same thing. At number 1, we got Travis Kelce of the Chiefs going up against the Denver Broncos, 8,100. Every week, basically, that I've done this Contenders series, I don't know when I started, maybe around like week 12. Kelce's been the number 1 most optimal tight end in our projections basically every week. I don't think he was last week, but maybe I'm wrong on DraftKings. Projected for 18.3 fantasy points, second in implied point total with 28.75, 12.5 point favorites, 15.8 optimal percentage, 13.9 boom percentage. Let's be honest, guys. We know why you want to play Travis Kelce. I know the matchup on paper against Denver's tough, but this guy literally has 30-plus point upside in any given matchups. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Again, if you ended up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as well as in that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. Again, today's video is brought to you guys by BetMGM. Make sure you check out the link in the video description down below or in the pinned comment. I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good